Rock and roll ain't noise pollution. Rock and roll ain't gonna die. Oh, hey, we're back. This is chapter 6, section 1 video, environmental problems. We'll be talking about, what do you think? Pollution today is what we'll be talking about. On board your screen right there, you have your bell ringer. Go ahead and read that and post it up there on edmodo.com. Give you a second. Alrighty, let's go ahead and get started. Today we have 6 different objectives for today. First off, we're going to list the 5 kinds of pollutants. Then we're going to distinguish between renewable and non-renewable resources. Next, we'll describe the impact of exotic species. Then we'll explain why human population growth has increased. Next, we'll describe how habitat destruction affects biodiversity. And we'll give 2 examples of how pollution affects humans. Dun, dun, dun. And here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, what is pollution? Pollution, as you see right here, is unwanted change in environment caused by substances such as waste or forms of energy such as radiation. That is pollution. So it's either going to be substances or forms of energy. That is what pollution is. All right. Now, here we go. Anything that causes that pollution is called a pollutant. Okay, so a pollutant is anything that causes the pollution. Some pollutants are produced by natural events such as volcanic eruptions. Many pollutants are human-made. Pollutants may harm plants, animals, and humans. Ladies and gentlemen, in case you don't realize it, if we destroy our environment, if we pollute our environment, regardless of whether we're doing it with garbage, whether we're doing it with noise, whether we're doing it with radiation, whether we're doing it with high-powered waste, whether we're doing it with chemicals, that kind of stuff, that harms the environment. So we have to be careful of how we use our environment, how we interact with our environment. If we interact with our environment like it doesn't matter, guess what? It won't be there for our future generations. So when we talk about it, there are 5 forms of energy, or 5 forms of pollution. You have garbage, you have chemicals, you have high-powered waste, you have gases, and you have noise. Yes, I'm telling you that noise is a pollution as well. When we look at garbage, the first one that we have, it says here, Americans throw away about more trash than the average person in any other nation. We throw away more garbage than average person in any other nation. 12 kilograms of trash a week. That is crazy when you think about that. Because where does that garbage go? Well, for us, you probably don't think about it very much. It probably goes from your house to the dump. At the dump, you don't even think about where it goes, but that trash has to go from the dump to the landfill. When it goes to the landfill, guess what? What a landfill is they just dig a big hole, they dump the garbage in there, and they keep piling it up with dirt and fill it up. Well, that takes away usable land that we could use for trees. That takes away land that we could use for parks. That takes away land that we could use for building houses. That takes away land that we could use for farming. Takes away land that we could use for building businesses. All those different things. When we have these landfills, that takes away usable land from us. Now, there are places like in Virginia Beach that they've turned their landfills into parks. There's a place called Mount Trashmore in Virginia Beach that is actually a park now. You can go there and visit and walk around, and they got a skate park and all that kind of stuff. And they have a big walking trail and a pond and all that kind of stuff that you go see and go visit. And it's a beautiful area because they decided to turn that landfill into usable space again. All right, but not every place does that. A lot of these landfills, once they get full, they just cover them up and they just leave and go someplace else. So being able to treat our environment respectfully, all right, so we don't lose our environment, so we don't damage our environment, is a good thing. Also, when we talk about landfills, the kind of stuff that we put in there, you have hazardous waste that people put in there, like biohazard stuff, blood and needles and that kind of stuff go out there. You have things out there that can explode. You have things that can eat through metal and make people sick. All that kind of stuff. Because you think about it, what do you throw in your garbage? Well, that's what everybody else throws in their garbage, and all that stuff together combined can be a bad thing. Next, we have chemicals. All right, so when we talk about chemicals, there's all kinds of chemicals that you could spray in the air and stuff, or chemicals that you use that harm our environment. One of the things that we discovered was CFCs. That's chlorofluorocarbons. All right. Years ago, we used to use that in an aerosol can. Whenever you had a can and you would spray it, the thing that actually gets that spray out of the can was a gas called a chlorofluorocarbon, or a CFC. That was a propellant to get the product out of the can. Well, we discovered that using CFCs ate a hole in the ozone layer. Well, we decided, hey, we can't do that because it's destroying our ozone layer. So now we've banned CFC use in those aerosols now. So if you pick up an aerosol can today, you'll see a circle with CFC written in a line through it, telling you that there are no CFCs in there. So we have to come up with other forms of propellants to get that product out of that can. Next is high-powered waste, nuclear power plants. When they get done using those uranium rods, what are they going to do with them? Well, they have to get rid of them. So what do? Well, they have to end up burying them and stuff, and that produces a lot of radioactive waste. And that becomes a problem. What do we do with those spent uranium rods the nuclear power plants have? Gases. You think about this. At one time in Los Angeles, you couldn't see the city of Los Angeles because of the haze of smog over it, because of all the factories and stuff that were working out there. Well, the EPA got involved, and now we start cleaning the environment, so we don't put as much gases into our environment to help keep the air clean. All right, because that causes increase in temperatures. That causes acid rain. The gases in the air causes acid rain and other things like that. And lastly, is noise pollution. Now, noise pollution, we probably don't think about it, but as pollution, but noise is a pollutant as well, because if the noise is too loud, it can affect your ability to hear, affect your ability to think, damages your hearing. So that is pollution. All right. So if you're playing your music too loud, guess what? That is noise pollution. Now, it may not be to you, but to the world around you, that is noise pollution. People running lawnmowers, people using the jackhammers, the construction worker using jackhammers and stuff. That's noise pollution as well. Now, when we talk about our resources we have, there are two types of resources. You have renewable resources and you have non-renewable resources. Renewable resources are ones that can be replaced at the same rate at which they're being used. Okay, so for example, wind would be a renewable resource because we're not going to use up all the wind in the world. That's a renewable resource. Okay. Trees are a renewable resource because we're able to plant new trees. Hopefully we plant the new trees as quickly as we harvest trees and stuff to keep that forest alive and stuff. So renewable resources are things that we can replace, that we can use and replace very easily. All right. The other one is a non-renewable resource, and that one cannot be replaced, or it cannot be replaced easily. It takes a very, very, very long time to replace. For example, oil. All right. If we use oil as a non-renewable resource, it takes millions of years to make more oil. So will we run out of oil? Well, theoretically, yes, we'll run out of oil, but if we just wait another couple million years, we'll get more oil. So, we have to pay attention to how we use that resource so that resource is not just used up very, willy-nilly, and that resource is used up and we don't have any for our future generations and stuff. Now, one of the things that scientists are doing is they're trying to find ways that we can use more renewable resources and less non-renewable resources. For example, instead of using coal all the time for our power plants, they started using garbage. Some power plants use garbage. They burn paper and garbage to create electricity. All right, they do that to save on, number one, to save on landfill space, but also they're doing that to reuse that product that we've already used. All right, they're looking at things like solar energy. They're looking at things like wind energy, looking at things like water energy. Those things won't get used up. So those are renewable resources, and being able to create electricity with those are things that these companies are trying to do today. All right. Now, there's another thing we have to talk about is exotic species. Now, people like to have all kinds of cool little pets and strange pets that nobody else ever has. The problem with that is if you have one of those types of pets and they come into an area that are not supposed to be, that organism is not supposed to be in, they can damage that environment. When we talk about exotic species, it's an organism that makes itself a home outside of its native home. This right here, you saw this picture in your book. This is called a snakehead fish. It can actually live on land for a couple of days without water. So here's an example. Here's a picture from what you saw in your book. Here's an example of it crossing the ground. And here's an example of it in India just walking down the street. So it can live on land without being in water for a couple of days. Now, another problem that we have is overpopulation. Okay, overpopulation is simply the fact that we have more people than we have resources, and eventually that'll happen. And we talked about that when we talked about Darwin and we talked about natural selection, and we said that Hutton had the idea that humans can reproduce rapidly, that we can reproduce every 9 months until from the time that you're fertile to the time that you're not fertile, you can reproduce a child every 9 months, and then we'd have a huge population. But remember, starvation, disease, that kind of stuff hurts hampers the number of people that we actually have. But in recent years, and advances in agriculture, advances in medicine, people are living longer and people are having more kids. So our population has dramatically increased. If you look right here, in 4000 BC, the population was less than 1 billion people. It was that way all the way up until 1800 CE, 1800 AD. We had less than a billion people in the world. Okay, but now in 2000 we have over 6 billion people. So in 200 years, well, no, 1200 years, no, 200 years, 200 years, we have gained 5 billion people in the world, and it's because advances in agriculture and advances in medicine. Those are things that that we have now. Again, we need to talk about habitat destruction and biodiversity. Remember, biodiversity is all the living organisms in an environment. We need to keep track of that. We need to make sure that we don't destroy our habitats. We don't take away habitats from animals and stuff that we need to survive and stuff. Yes, it's one thing for us to be able to build houses and that kind of thing, but then we also have to be sensitive to the other living organisms in the area, because if we're not, we'll lose those organisms. And how many guys, you guys are all hunters, how many guys would like to go out there and have any deer out there? Well, if we don't have a habitat for the deer, then the deer are going to be gone. So you won't have that to be able to hunt and eat. Get me some deer jerky. Nummy, 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 nummy. All right. So we got to pay attention to that, cutting down trees and stuff, deforestation, that's clearing of the forest. We don't want to do that kind of stuff because we know those trees give us oxygen and stuff. Marine habitats, we need to pay attention to making sure that we don't have oil spills. And if we do have oil spills, to get it quickly cleaned up. The oil spill happened down in the Gulf. I mean, that had a drastic effect on the marine ecosystem down there. The oil spill that happened up in Alaska, in Valdez, Alaska, that had a dramatic effect on the marine habitat there, and we had to clean it up, and we're still cleaning up that environment to help those different people. Now, we have two types of things when we talk about marine habitats and pollution. You have point source pollution and non-point source pollution. Point source pollution is a pollution that comes from one source. We know exactly where that pollution comes from. That is point source pollution. Non-point source pollution comes from many, many different sources, and it comes from all over the place, and you have no idea exactly where it comes from. All right. Now, when we talk about pollution in humans and what effects it has on us, it has a drastic effect. All right. And sometimes we don't see it right away, but it can have a drastic effect on us. It can have, health issues. We can have health issues from environmental problems. We have, those types of things, can happen to us because of habitat destruction. And so we got to pay attention to those different things. Well, guess what? It's review time. So go ahead and I'll be quiet for a little bit and you guys go ahead and take your notes because it's review time. Review time. It's time for the review. Okay, well, I hope you guys enjoyed that video. That was your 6.1 section video. That is the environmental problems. Yep, environmental problems section. You guys have a great day, and I'll be seeing you in the future.